Hello and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Lesha Nilsson, and today on Nurturing Resilience, we have Sena Maria. I'll just quickly read over her bio and then we can jump in immediate into our conversation because I think I've been talking about having you on my podcast for maybe a year.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's a long time in the making, so I'm really happy to have you here. So Sena Maria believes that true vitality begins deep in our cells, and that when we support the body's ability to create energy and release what it no longer needs, we can reclaim strength, clarity, and capacity to show up fully for ourselves and our families. Her work is anchored in what's called HTMA, or hair tissue mineral analysis, through the lens of mineral nutrition balancing, which is a method that helps uncover each person's unique metabolic blueprint and guides gentle, lasting shifts in health. She first discovered HTMA in 2022 after winning a contest through Instagram giveaway, which I didn't know that till I read your bio. At the time, she was navigating fatigue, histamine sensitivity, and a deep sense of depletion. When she received her results, she was stunned by the accuracy, and the practitioner named not only the physiological imbalances, but also the emotional imbalances, which I'm excited to get into. And this became your unique turning point. Since then, Sena Maria has completed multiple HTMA trainings while gently restoring her own nervous system and mineral imbalances. She now offers this deeply personal and science-backed work to others, creating compassionate, informed spaces for healing at the cellular level and rebuilding resilience from the inside out. So I'm just going to name right now that I've been calling you Sena for 2 years.
It's okay. It happened.
And today she's like, Lesha, it's Sena, which is funny because my name is a single E, but it's pronounced Lesha. So there's this, I get called Lesha all the time. So my mind is dealing with a complete reorganization right now.
Totally okay. But I figured, I was like, okay, if we're doing a podcast, I should probably mention it. It's hard. I don't know why it's hard for me to correct people. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And then when you know someone for 2 years, it's like, oh, by the way.
Yeah. I referred a client to another practitioner, and the client texted me and she's like, oh my God, have I been saying your name wrong for 2 years? And I was like, no, she's actually the one saying my name.
Gosh, that's hilarious.
Like, you're the right one.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
Yeah. So
Unique names.
And I always like to start out how I know you or how I found you, if that's okay. And then we can jump into you and your story. I found you on Instagram actually either during the pandemic or shortly. It must have been after if you did your HTMA in 2022. But I was following a lot of accounts. The other account I was following, we've talked extensively about Marley Robbins on this podcast, and you and I have too. I was following his work. I was following another account called The Mineral Shaman. And when I first found you, I've been watching your story all this time and this development and what you offer. But I was really interested in your work because you were one of the only people kind of talking about supporting women who were doing mushroom journeys and microdosing and ayahuasca journeys and how minerally depleting that is for their system.
Mhm.
And what I liked about your message is you weren't saying, at the time when I found you, you weren't saying don't do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that you support your body if you're going to do those things. And
Right.
so right away I was like, oh, she's not super dogmatic. I really appreciate that approach in healing, and that's hard to find in healing is someone that's not super dogmatic.
Right.
And so I followed you for a few years, and then you opened up your own program to support women, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to check this out. And you and I have since then been working together for almost 2 years, and I've had massive, massive shifts in my body and how I feel and my mineral balancing. So I feel like everyone needs this work. I feel like everyone's minerally depleted, which is why I wanted to have you on here. And I think a lot of people don't know what HTMA even is.
Right.
I feel like it's new. So let's start with that. Like, what is HTMA when you tell people you're a practitioner in that?
Yeah. So HTMA it's a lab test. When people say HTMA, it's hair tissue mineral analysis. That's referring to the actual test where you take a sample of your hair. It's like about an inch from the hair closest to the scalp, and you're looking at the last 3 months of minerals and metals being excreted into your hair. And so basically that little hair sample gets sent to the lab. They burn it and measure the ash content to determine how many minerals and how many metals are in that little sample. And then within the thing I like to be really clear about is, there are many, many people practicing with that lab HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis, and there are many different approaches within that. So not every practitioner doing hair tissue mineral analysis is going to have the same approach. There's different kind of like lineages. And so I practice what's called mineral nutritional balancing, which is the lineage of Dr. Paul Eck that he started in the 70s.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know they burned your hair in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why does that give someone a better understanding, and just also understanding, we'll frame this in like the lineage or the teachings of Paul Eck, because
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where you're coming from. But why does that give us a better understanding of what's going on in your body? Because I recently had my yearly blood work and told her I'm working with an HTMA, and of course she was like, that's not that accurate. And I was like, well, I don't know. I feel really good.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's value in blood work. I think there's value in HTMA. They're looking at different things. There's a lot we could talk about why I think the HTMA world has kind of a quote unquote bad rap. But generally, the cool thing about hair sample is it's a slow growing medium. So we're getting a much longer time frame. Whereas blood work, for example, our blood, our serum is so important to our survival. And so our body's going to do everything it can to keep all of the blood markers in a healthy range. So if something is showing on blood, that usually means it's been going on for quite some time to actually show up in the blood. And if you had a smoothie before taking your blood work, that would change, glucose levels, and that would actually impact your test that day. So it's a snapshot in time. And not to say that that's not valuable. I mean, blood work is definitely valuable. And HTMA is looking at a different time frame. So we generally say 3 months, but you're seeing longer than that, right? You can see if there's chronic patterns, if there's, chronic, you can kind of tell if someone's likely been in a chronically depleted state. You're going to see that much more in an HTMA than I think I would show on blood work.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit, because you said there's a bunch of different HTMA. Are they considered schools of thought, lineages? What do you call that in your line of work?
Call it a lineage, because mineral nutritional balancing has really kept the lineage alive. They haven't deviated too much from it. Analytical Research Labs is the lab that Dr. Paul Eck founded, and his family still runs that lab. And yeah, so it's still, and there are some feedback around that where it's kind of stuck in the 80s, their branding is, they're just kind of old school in certain ways, but they've also maintained the integrity of what he created and the formulas that he created. And there are, there's some innovation happening, and there's some supplement companies popping up trying to kind of upgrade some of his original formulas, but keeping the integrity of his ratios and all of the incredible body of work that he put together. Mineral nutritional balancing really they do a good job in maintaining that original kind of body of work and transmission. There are many other approaches I've studied. It took me a while to find mineral nutritional balancing. I actually started in the root cause protocol, and I've taken a few other trainings. And then when I found this approach, I was like, okay, this actually it just feels more comprehensive, more solid. There's 40 to 50 years of anecdotal evidence at this point. The teacher that I learned from, she's been practicing it for 20 years, probably more. So, it's there's this wisdom over time with mineral nutritional balancing that really resonated with me. And there are some unique things about it. Like, for example, the four lows, which is one of the first four macro minerals. So calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, when those get below the ideal levels, that is, especially on an initial test, that is a sign of metabolic collapse or like a deep deficiency or depletion pattern. And that's unique to mineral nutritional balancing, Dr. Pollack. And it took him 11 years to identify that pattern and put that into a different category, because he would try, like what many people try when someone comes to you, they're super fatigued, they're quote unquote burned out. He would try to support the adrenals. He would try to kind of boost those sodium potassium levels in various ways, and it never really moved the needle. And then he kind of realized, okay, there's something about like all four of these being low. Let me try. He tried actually what we do today now, which is giving more calcium, magnesium. So giving more calming minerals, actually quote unquote putting the adrenals to bed, and realize like that's actually what needed. So when people were in that really deep state of depletion, they actually need to like deeply, deeply, deeply rest in order to heal the adrenals. There are other HTMA approaches now that they don't really use the four lows. They don't really take that approach. They will kind of do what if you go to a naturopath and they're not doing HTMA, they're often giving you B vitamins. They're giving you, adrenal gland formulas, which have a time and a place. But Dr. Eck, that's one of the kind of main differences, I would say, for mineral nutritional balancing is how we approach the four lows pattern, for example.
Hmm. Wow, so many questions from this. I do want to get into your story, but since we're kind of on this Paul Eck journey, let's keep going with that a little bit, because I think that's what was so surprising when I did my first couple hair analyses
Yeah.
with you, was that my calcium was very, very high. And so not knowing, you look at that form and be like, oh, good job. Your calcium looks excellent. But from your perspective, you were like, this isn't a great sign. This is your body not necessarily absorbing calcium. You're in what's called a calcium shell. And so it kind of seems like Paul Eck's work kind of started to look, correct me if I'm wrong, but like some patterns and different ways of being, and relating those into an emotional context too, which we can share some of my ahas, because I like firsthand stories, or if you have clients that you don't mind sharing their information, like their story. That's what blows my mind about this work, is the relationship between the patterns and the minerals and what's going on emotionally, not even emotionally, just like the most recent one we experienced, like about like my most recent hair test, you called it a maturing pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My minerals were showing a maturing pattern, and which is like me growing up in a way. And I was like, oh, I just hired a financial advisor for the last 3 months, and I've been working with her, getting all of my finances in a much better place. And I was like, did the minerals make me do that?
Yeah.
Like, did me feeling well and having these supported minerals make me be like, oh, I have the capacity to hire a financial coach? And like, that blows my mind. So I don't know, anything you want to share along those lines around like, I think a lot of people have a calcium shell. I think a ton of people are burned out. You have another one called slow oxidization.
There's slow oxidation.
Yep. Like, I think that's super common. So I would just love to talk about all the things. Just,
Yeah.
this is your microphone. Get it out there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, since just to clarify, so everyone has an oxidation rate. It's basically how well your body produces energy and eliminates toxins. It's when we talk about your metabolism, that's essentially what that means. Like, how efficiently does your body create energy, and then how efficiently does it eliminate things that it doesn't need? So everyone fits into a slow oxidizer or a fast oxidizer. That just means your metabolism is either on the slowish side or the fast side. And then there's also the sub-oxidation rate, which is a 4 lows on an initial test. We could go into all of that in more detail, but I just wanted to kind of like, that's a foundation. Everyone has one of those patterns, everyone has an oxidation rate. And then there's patterns. So a calcium shell is it's an easier one to understand, because calcium, we know calcium because our bones are calcium. So we know calcium hardens. Our teeth, are high in calcium. So we can kind of understand that tangibly. And when we have a calcium shell, so ideal levels of calcium on a test are 40, and a shell territory, we start kind of around 100, 165 for women. That's in milligrams percent. That is called a calcium shell, and it can get higher. And what that means when I see a calcium of 165, for example, that tells me your body's excreting that calcium out. It's going elsewhere. It's not going to where it's supposed to be. It's going more into the hair. And you can surmise, okay, if it's going out into the hair tissue, it's likely going, maybe there's calcium deposits forming in the lungs. Maybe we have kidney stones forming. We don't want calcium hardening in other areas of the body. And there's a lot of like physiological, pieces to calcium. But from then we kind of pair it with the psychological, the emotional side, the mental side of things. And we will see calcium shells when it's more common in women. And we'll see that happening when women are overwhelmed. So it's like a protection response often. Calcium is extracellular primarily, so it's outside of the cell more so. And so if you imagine, okay, there's too much calcium building up outside of your cell, it's actually creating like a wall around your cell. What does it feel like when we're creating really strong walls between us and the world, between us and our partners, people we're in relationship with? It's a defense mechanism, right? It's like an armor. And it can signify, overwhelming stress. It can be a trauma response. And there's actual psychological manifestations where sometimes women feel really numb, like they can't really. It's definitely a pattern of protecting oneself from feeling, because it's a hardening, it's a rigidity, it's a defense wall. Again, it's a protection mechanism, so there's a reason that we're doing this, but it can really show up on the emotional level where there can be lowered awareness, like you don't even really see yourself very clearly. You're disconnected from the emotions that like you kind of need to feel or that are living within you. And then there can just be kind of a to how you operate in the world, where you're kind of yourself at distance from others. So that's just one example, but I think it's a really easy to relate one because we know calcium kind of, I don't know, I feel like that's more tangible for people to connect with.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I wouldn't have known that. Like, again, I looked at my calcium score and I was like, oh, it looks so great. My calcium's so high on my first assessment. And I feel like that's one that kind of, maybe not for you, but for me, that's one of the biggest pieces I've been working on in myself is how do I break this calcium shell?
Mm-hmm.
Like what needs to happen on an emotional level, on a trauma processing level. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then how can the minerals support that? And I think what's so important is that most people that don't do HTMA or don't understand Paul Eck's work would be like, well, you just take more calcium.
Mm-hmm.
Like your calcium's low, you just take more calcium. Your magnesium's low, just take more magnesium.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's important to talk about a little bit because you're looking more at the patterns and that certain minerals work with certain minerals, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're talking to is called the replacement theory, where it's like, oh, you have low potassium, just to supplement more potassium. And Dr. Eck found over and over again, I mean, he analyzed over 200,000 hair tests and he found that that doesn't work. And if you look, if anyone, if you Google like mineral wheel, there's a very complex diagram of all the interrelationships between minerals and metals. So I like to describe it, I visualize it as a spider web with each, like there's a mineral and a metal at each node around the web. And if I just supplemented a bunch of magnesium with nothing else, that's going to pull on that node, that magnesium node, and the whole web is impacted by that. Like there are so many interconnections and cascading effects. So like for people that, if you're just like magnesium's the popular one to supplement, and it's okay. I'm not saying never supplement magnesium, but what I realized when I started this work is that like randomly supplementing is actually, it can be a pretty big deal. It can have a really big impact on the mineral balance in your body. And if you supplement too much magnesium, you can throw off, like you can actually waste more sodium or waste more potassium. The body's always trying to keep these minerals in a certain balance and within ratios to each other. So that's a really important piece. And that's where that replacement theory of just looking at one mineral and saying, oh, this is low, just supplement it, it doesn't work. If it worked, it'd be awesome. I mean, that would be so easy if you were just like, yeah, just take more salt and like add some potassium supplements and you're good to go. But it just doesn't work like that. And so that's, I think, also one of the keystones of Dr. Eck's approach is that he really took the whole mineral system into account, and that's how he designed his formulas. And it's really complex. I mean, it's not as simple as just like, oh, you need to take more calcium. It's like, well, how do we support your body in utilizing this calcium? And we need to have the calcium in relation with magnesium because the balance between those two is really important. And if we, overdo one thing over here, it can throw the sodium potassium balance off. Like there's just so many interconnections, and I don't even like understand all of them. I mean, this is like a lifetime worth of, learning, and there's so much to the system. But Dr. Eck did, he did understand how that worked much more in depth, which is pretty special.
Yeah, I just think that's a really important concept because I think that's how a lot of us are living our lives and moving through the world. It's like maybe you do go get blood work, or like you hear a friend that's taking magnesium and it made them feel better. And so you're
Right.
like, oh, I'll take magnesium. And then it can throw off all the other systems.
Uh-huh.
And would you say the majority of us are depleted? Like just walking around in depletion, and also toxicity. Like we just have a much more toxic environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm intentional to the point of like, maybe I don't share anything about it at this point, but I really try to not be fear-mongery because like there's so much in the wellness space that's people are just freaking out and they're trying cleanses. And like, I think there's a lot of detriment to actual health in that approach. And so I don't talk about it too much publicly, but short answer is yes. I mean, our diet generationally has declined nutritionally for, I don't know, 4 or 5 generations at this point. I mean, processed foods were really introduced around like 1920s. And, we've shifted from more of like the small, you have like the home farm, you have your goat or you have your cow or whatever it is. We've really shifted from that in our food dynamic. We're not eating nose to tail. So we're number one, each generation is getting less nutrients in their diet. Soil health has declined dramatically. So a carrot now is going to give you, I don't know, I've heard different stats, but you're getting a quarter or like a fraction of the nutrients from a carrot today than you would 100 years ago in the soil. This is all generalizations, right? So if you're farming and you're tending your soil, there's many nuances to this, but population at large, like we're getting less nutrients in our diet. We're eating more processed foods, which have chemicals, additives, preservatives. Like, what is the impact on that in the body? And then we are exposed to so much more toxins. There's xenoestrogens, there's pharmaceuticals, there's heavy metals, like industrial processing, industrial agriculture, pesticides. I mean, like on and on, like jet fuel all around us, chemtrails. There's a lot that we're exposed to. And so I do believe this is I personally see that we are becoming more fragile. That's my take. And I think that this has a big part to do with that because the more depleted we are, the more likely we are to hold on to the toxins that we like, for example, lead, cadmium, aluminum, they can actually take the place of calcium in the body. And so if we're deficient in calcium, the body's going to try to, like, it has more space. It has little receptors to hold on to more metals, for example. Our oxidation rate is sluggish. We have a harder time making energy. We have a harder time eliminating those metals. And it just cascades. I think that these toxins the more toxins we have stored and accumulated, the more likely we will have symptoms manifest over time.
And if our minerals are depleted, we can't detox the way that we would if we weren't depleted.
Right. Yep. So when the body, this is kind of one of the main ethos of this work is I'm not doing chelation cleanses with people. We're not forcing these toxins out of the body. When the body is well mineralized, it is able to, the body can detox these minerals on its own, or these metals on its own, but it needs energy to do that. And it needs the detox pathways to be open to do that. And so that right there is why we focus on the metabolism, the oxidation rate, because the kind of concept is like the body is a system. And if we support whole body health, your body knows how to heal. Your body, our bodies are so intelligent, but if they don't have fuel, if they don't have, if they don't have the minerals, if they don't have the vitamins that they need to run all these enzymatic processes, then we're not going to have energy to eliminate toxins. We're just going to store them.
And do you think in our day and age, because we are living in a more toxic society, and I'm not a fearmonger either, and
Yeah.
there's so many nuances, nothing's black and white. But in general, do you think that because we are living in a more toxic society, that we are just going to need some mineral support outside of our diet in order for our body to be healthy and allowing these processes to naturally happen?
Hmm. Yeah, this is a really big question I get a lot. And I came into it very much like I want whole food based. I don't want to do a bunch of synthetic supplements, very informed by like Weston A. Price and like nourishing traditions and that kind of approach. And as I've done this work, the short answer is yes, I do think there's a time and place where we actually are to a point where I can't eat enough oysters to get enough zinc to move the needle to actually support my high sodium potassium ratio, for example, that's causing a lot of inflammation. It's just not sustainable to like the amount. And the other piece actually is that I've seen this so much, and it happened to me. There's the pro-metabolic world where women kind of are like, ooh, I can eat real food and I can have bacon and I can have sourdough and I can have butter. And the problem with, or like one of the pitfalls, I guess, of going deep into pro-metabolic is that you need a pretty robust metabolism to digest all that rich food and to utilize it. And so there's a common experience for women is gaining quite a bit of weight when they kind of pendulum swing over to a really nutrient dense diet. So that's another piece too, where it's like many women's bodies are not ready to digest liver every day, to eat a bunch of oysters, to have, like super rich cuts of meat. And like all of that is really good and nourishing. And I want women to eat that way. But if the body's not able to digest it well, if the gut is, depleted and we have dysbiosis and we're not digesting super well, then that can actually cause more of an issue in the long run. And so that's where, again, like really opened up to, synthetic zinc from, people that know what they're doing, that are sourcing this well, that understand the forms when it's given, when it's in a program. And I know the sourcing of these supplements, I think there's definitely a time and place for it. And often I do believe it is necessary. Like, I think maybe there's a way without it, but it would just take a lot longer. And nutrition is fundamental. I mean, you can't just supplement. And like, there's that, I'm not saying that by any means. They're both integral. But I do think even just that digestive piece alone, if our digestive system is sluggish or not doing well, we're not going to be absorbing well. And I don't think that we can, it's going to be hard to really bring the body back to balance just with food.
Yeah. And I never thought about that before, that like if the majority of society is slow oxidators,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm eating butter and I'm eating bacon and I'm having,
Yeah.
like your body wouldn't be able to do anything with all.
Right. Yeah. Like ideally it's a titrated process, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
And it does bring up another concept that I think a lot of women struggle with. And I think it's our culture and our society. I'm going to say white culture and white society,
Mm.
actually. I can only speak from a white person lived experience, but I mean, like I've said, I've been working with you for almost 2 years. And I think it was about 9 months in, I was like, man, Sena, I've gained 10 pounds. I'm kind of
Mm,
frustrated by this. Like my
yeah.
clothes are fitting differently. And you being like, yeah, I think you needed to gain 10 pounds. Like most women actually need that. And it is really this interesting shift and part of my depletion story. I've talked about this on a previous podcast, but just not technically having a quote unquote eating disorder, but I definitely like played into the whole restrictive diet thing at a very young age. Didn't eat a lot of meat as a teenager when that was foundational. And just really struggling with the concept of like my body. Yes, I'm still a very skinny woman, but allowing my body to like soften at the belly
Hmm.
and soften at the hips and allow for a different shape. And some moments in time, because it's not a daily thing, it's more like a big picture thing, I'll love it. I'll be like, oh, I'm curvier and like I feel more feminine and it feels so
Hmm.
sexy and juicy. And then other times I'm like, man, remember when I could fit into the skinny pants, like the skinny jeans, quote unquote? And like, I wonder if that will ever happen again. And just, it's a mind fuck.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
let's just name it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And just really, really being in this place of like, my body is so much more healthy. I look healthier. Don't crash at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon like I used to. Like the amount of energy I'm putting towards work right now, I'm like, how am I doing this? And I feel good with it. It's not like I'm pushing myself to burnout like I would have in the past. Like I'm actually sustaining myself. And so it's been such an interesting 2 year process of like, I feel better. According to society, I don't have the like skinny, young, teenage looking body. All this is in quote, like, because that's just weird that that's what's desired. But it's been such a journey. And I'm sure so many women come to this place with you or experience body. Like I've experienced like complete physiological change in my body. And I just look different. And
Yes.
to embrace it and also be like, damn.
Right. Yeah. This is like, there's so much that we could unpack here. But thank you for bringing it up because I mean, I struggle with it. It's like, it's not, I don't think any woman is immune to it, in in some way. But I do, and there's also, I mean, just kind of what I was speaking to with like the pro-metabolic weight gain, or like, I don't know if you follow, like Susie and Clara, they just did a podcast about their weight gain. Like there can be, I've seen women with like pro-metabolic where like there's too much weight gain, right? And I think both can be like, both being too thin and having too much weight gain are pointing to metabolic imbalances. So anyways, it's a spectrum. And, I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert. One of her books, she was like, no matter who it is, every single woman I've ever talked to believes that they're a little too fat. Like, I think there's just this insidious internal dialogue that unfortunately so many girls and women have. And it's totally ridiculous and unhealthy. And it's also unhealthy to be like, it can be unhealthy to be too overweight, right? And we have to find like our own balance within that. That being said, when we have history of disordered eating, restricted eating, I was the same. I didn't have an eating disorder, but I definitely like didn't eat breakfast, and I would like have cacao in the morning and have like, I just didn't eat enough protein. I just wasn't even, food was like an afterthought. It just happened. I don't even know what I ate. And I was very thin, kind of quote unquote naturally. And then once I started actually feeding myself, it was like, oh, now I feel like a woman. Um, and so that's where that, like, I often tell women clients that I can kind of tell we're in more of that like too thin place. I just say, you may actually be healthiest 5 to 10 pounds heavier than you think you should be. And that can be a tough pill to swallow. There's God, there's so much I could say about it. But one thing too that I do like to highlight in this conversation is when women are, well, first off, I always bring the focus to, okay, but how are you feeling? And I always, whether it's about the HTMA results or your weight or whatever, I'm always bringing the focus back to the most important thing is how you feel in your body. And like, I think every single time when women have gained a little bit of weight, they're like, yeah, I feel like way less anxious. I have more sustained energy. I'm feeling much more hopeful. There's all these like really amazing benefits and like shifts. And I'm like, okay, so can we like embrace that and acknowledge the fact that like some of these women like couldn't get off the couch. And it's like, okay, like what about all the magic that's happening here and all the healing that's happening? Maybe the 5 to 10 pound shift like isn't such a big deal in the scheme of things, right? And then the other place I will go is when I feel like women are metabolically, at a place where they can handle strength training. That is what I will recommend. I mean, I think the cardio crate, I don't really think cardio, I mean, of course, like getting your heart rate up, cardiovascular health is important, but the over focus, women have been kind of taught to over focus on cardio and things like high intensity interval training. If you're already stressed, with which many women are, that is the last thing your body needs. But strength training, when you do it in a metabolically supportive way, a way that's supportive for your hormones, that is so beneficial to build muscle. And so if women are kind of having this like feeling a little uncomfortable, I'm like, well, let's get some strength going. And then, that can change your body composition. Not that that's the goal, but it's like once you feel strong and you feel even more metabolic, that's going to speed your metabolism up. I mean, muscles are just like magic for our metabolic health. And so, that's kind of like the next layer of like, cool, okay, so now that we've replenished to the point where you actually have like an excess of energy, maybe, how can we like use that energy? So like for you, like I'm working more, I'm able to give more, you're able to be more of service. And you wouldn't have been able to sustain that in the past in a healthy way. And then like for some, then we can also like be strength training and building muscle in that way. And that just kind of amplifies the benefits for metabolism.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I'm sure all this shows up in these patterns on the minerals. I'm sure, like, 'cause sometimes when you look at assessments, I'm sure you're like, I know what's going on in their life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're like the secret wizard, like, ha ha ha.
But I don't bring it up unless someone, I'm just like, okay, we'll just get there when we get there. Maybe they don't have to share it with me. That's fine.
I love it. Well, you kind of talked about your story a little bit, just drinking cacao and skipping breakfast. And
Yeah.
let's talk about your story because, like I said, I found you, man, I don't know at what point, but your story is so fascinating. You're a DJ.
Yep. Yes.
I love it. You're really into music, it looks like. I know the curated story of Instagram, but let's get into the real story.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you've had some big changes the last couple years.
Yes. Huge changes. Huge, huge changes.
Yeah. Um, I do love that yeah, like I said, I met you because, or really started following your work because you were like, how do we support women who are doing mushrooms and mushroom journeys and that are just getting depleted and because of all these mushroom journeys, which we can unpack that too.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's hear your story a little bit. Like, and this was an Instagram win. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Okay. Like it's kind of like when you talk about women's health, it's like how I was born and these were my, this was the environment in the womb.
Yeah, my mom was
Yeah.
depleted, and
Yeah.
this is my story. I
My
was a
mom was
C-section.
dehydrated. But I'll summarize that with saying I had you know, a childhood of disordered eating. I mean, I grew up in the early 90s, late 80s, and Tang and waffles with syrup was my breakfast and ate a lot of fast food. I'm from Minnesota, so like there wasn't a ton of like food culture around me at the time. It's actually there's a lot of good food here now, but like and there I'm sure there was then, but I wasn't tapped into that. And And then I started drinking really young. So I had like 10 solid years of intense drinking problem for sure. And then I was also on hormonal birth control. I had the Depo-Provera shot when I was 14 a couple times. So yeah. And then I found my way into yoga, and that kind of stopped my drinking. I moved out to California. Yeah, I just opened spiritually. And it was amazing. I mean, it really, really expanded my perspective of the world and kind of opened my heart up. I was, drinking a lot and I was pretty shut down in many ways. And I started teaching yoga. I got into my voice for the first time, like connecting with music and singing. And then I got into the plant medicine world, and I had like probably a solid 7 to 10 years of like what I call kind of like the hippie years, the deep, like traveling around. Like I was in Central America a lot. I lived in Costa Rica for 8 months, was in Peru, Guatemala. I was doing kind of the like hippie, spiritual nomad circuit, really into cacao. I was visiting cacao farms. I was actually working for my friend's cacao company for a period of time, which was really cool. And so during that period, that was when like there was ayahuasca, there was San Pedro cactus, there was a lot of plant medicines happening. Got really into microdosing the psilocybin. I was drinking cacao and microdosing a lot of mornings. So my focus, it was very spiritually expansive. And looking back, it was very depleting for my body. There was very minimal focus. There was very little focus on uh, my body health. I mean, I was traveling. I was really, in my kind of ethereal place. And the other thing too, with that kind of the plant medicine quote, I call it kind of like new age spirituality. I don't know how else to call it now. The approach to food is very much one of restriction. It's kind of clothed in a spiritual and like health. It's clothed as health, clothed as health. I don't know how to say that, but it's presented as this is healthy, but you're doing restricted diets if you're doing a lot of psychedelics, plant medicine work. There's a lot of vegetarianism in the community, even in yoga. My first yoga teacher training, our assignment was to be vegetarian for a week because of ahimsa and nonviolence. And, I can totally understand that from a conceptual framework. So there was this kind of underlying like insidious messaging of like the less you eat, the more spiritual you are. Like languaging of like, I don't want to feel heavy after meals. I want to feel light. I want to drink juices. I want to have fruit. I met people that only ate fruit. They were fruitarians. Like that was the world that I was dancing in. So fast forward, I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm essentially having a metabolic crash. That's how I refer to it now. It was sneaky. I wasn't really connected to my body. So I was just kind of ignoring these symptoms, but my seasonal allergies got worse. I couldn't digest dairy. I couldn't digest gluten. So my diet started to become more restricted. Had crazy like brain foggy inflammation stuff happening. I remember going to my co-op and it would vary throughout the month, but there were periods where I wouldn't be able to remember my member number and like the 5-digit number that like I would say, once a week. I couldn't recall that kind of information. And I noticed it and it was getting a little worse, but I also kind of just ignored it and kept on with my spiritual practices. Having great time for 2 hours every morning, drinking cacao and microdosing and like feeling kind of high. And then I started to develop histamine issues. And I didn't know what that was. But I would be very reactive to a mosquito bite. I would feel like my system was like burning from the inside. I would feel crazy, like PMDD, kind of emotional, luteal phase experience where I like couldn't stop crying. I mean, my mood was all over the place, like sleep issues. So it just got to a point where I was really not in a good way. And I was reacting to the tea or the cacao or I had to stop. My body made it so clear that I couldn't continue on as I was. And it was around that time, and then I think I was doing keto because I didn't know what to do. Oh, actually, well, I found someone on Instagram and I did a genetics test, and her whole approach, she's a female doctor recommending keto for pretty much everyone, all of her female clients. So I did it and it felt great for a period of time. I got super skinny and it did help with my inflammation and my histamine issues. And then it totally, totally just rebounded in a bad way. It like my whole metabolism was like, stop. And that was around that time when I won this HTMA in an Instagram giveaway from a pro-metabolic nutritionist that I was following. And that was when, so I did my hair test. I had never even spoken to her. Like, I just emailed her my top 5 symptoms and she sent me a 30-minute video recording of my results. So she never even knew, like, she didn't know me. She didn't know anything about me. And I swear, Lesha, that video, like, I was like, she was not just talking about, oh, like your potassium's low, it's your very sluggish adrenals, very sluggish thyroid. I can tell you're pretty depleted at this point. And with magnesium levels this low, you might tend to socially withdraw. Or like she had, mentioned these like psychological, more emotional things. And I was like, how do you know me? What? Like, I don't understand how you can tell this. So that was really, honestly, I had to learn not only how to cook for myself and cook 3 meals fresh a day because my histamine issue was so intense I couldn't do any leftovers. So I had to learn to cook myself. I literally had to learn about my body kind of from the ground up. So I started kind of in pro-metabolic nutrition, and then I got into minerals and like wanted to learn more about the HTMA test. And here I am today. And like my life has I don't even know. I'm like, it's a totally different life than what I was doing before. I'm grounded. I'm in a healthy relationship. We just moved into like a beautiful, basically like my dream home. It's like my business is, I'm running a successful business supporting women. It's not chaotic. And there's a lot I could say about that for like women's nervous systems and kind of the patterns we can get into. And I feel like I'm kind of learning how to do the other side of that, which is to actually be slow and grounded and focus on things like sleep and my food and letting that be enough.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your story. There's so many little different offputs that I want to go. The first one I'll share is that I recently did a somatic experiencing session with a practitioner. I don't know, like maybe a month and a half ago, because I could just tell with my back injury, I was like, there's still just like no one was willing to take me into the moment of the injury itself. Like, it's really, really hard to find good practitioners that can actually take you places, especially when you're a practitioner
Right.
yourself. But where the session ended up going, and one of the things she reflected to me at the end is she's like, when is enough enough? Because I had an injury, I kind of recovered, and then it was like bike ride number 2 that I was trying to get back into it. And I did 1 loop and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really good. Let's do another loop. And it was on the second loop that I fully
Yep.
herniated my disc. And she's like, just going to ask you, like, what would have happened if you just would have stopped after that first loop?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're feeling good. Like, can you actually stop while you're feeling good versus pushing yourself and stopping because you crashed or
Yes.
stopping because you're injured?
Yes. Yes. That is, I mean, so that from a HTMA perspective, that's the sympathetic dominance pattern. Very common for women, very common for moms for good reason. But it's there's 16 different markers on the test, but one of the most easy to see ones is your potassium level. So a potassium level of 4 or below shows me that there's a level of chronic pushing. It's called a pusher pattern. That's another word for it. There's a level of chronic fight or flight. And part of that is it's kind of a mind over body. It's pushing your body beyond the natural level of energy that your body has. And you described that very well. And I know that so well, right? Like I was strength training for a couple years, and I would be so like, I wouldn't be wiped right after it, but my body had a hard time recovering. Like, I just would feel really sore for like 2 days, and I kind of just kept going because there was also so many benefits to it that I felt like my blood sugar was so regulated, my appetite was so solid, my sleep was a lot better. But I kind of fell off the strength training wagon when I got into my relationship this summer, and it's been a really interesting kind of experiment to see like, oh my God, like I actually had a lot of body pain. And I was pushing myself. Like I would like choose the heavier weight. I would, I would just get in some kind of zone where I wanted to go harder. And it wasn't until I like went to the gym with my partner, and he's like a big dude. Like he's like 6 foot and like naturally very muscular, and he pushed himself like 1/4 of what I was doing. Like he was just like, "Whoa," like, and I'm just like, "Yeah," like, "Whoa," like kettlebells, stuff, like whatever. I'm just like doing all this stuff, and he's like very titrated. Like he doesn't need to push himself to that point. He just kind of he's like a slow and steady wins the race, and I'm like, I have to go hard today. Like I don't know. It's, I think a lot of women can probably relate to that, but it's a pattern. It's a pattern of like there's a disconnect to your actual body, and that win is enough. And another thing this is related somehow. I'm not sure how it's going to come together, but potassium represents the will. So there's like that pusher pattern. It's like your will can be really strong, but it can also be really imbalanced. And I often see when women have lower potassium, they have a hard time finishing things. They're like starting a bunch of stuff. We get excited and we get energized from the start of something. We're signing up for a course. We're doing a new program, we're trying a new whatever, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna like take this on and do this. And there's a lot of energy burst from that, peters out. So sodium, potassium together represent willpower. Sodium is our power, potassium is our will, and we need both of those to be able to, start things, finish things, be grounded enough. And those are related to adrenal. Those are two of the main adrenal markers in the body. So you know, I think that sympathetic dominance pattern can cause women to take on too much because we get energy from it, and the body's trying to operate. It's trying to get energy, and it's depleted, but it's trying to keep going. So we can just take on more and more because we putting pressure on ourselves, and like kind of forces ourselves to do things. But underneath that, like we often just need to kind of do way less. Way less. And like back to the bike example, it's like, yeah, like the potassium and that win is enough. Like when people are in a deep sympathetic dominance pattern, they're the women that they want to do the most on their protocols. They want to like, they're just going 11 out of 10. And I'm kind of like, or we could just like, can we just do castor oil packs? Can we just like actually focus on that practice and try to get that like in the mix? Right. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Okay, where my mind goes. I'm like, my mind's sitting here, like there's some wheels turning here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to come back to the spiritual conversation.
Great.
So in my world, in pre and perinatal somatics, we call those birth imprints.
Mm.
Like so birth is like the sequence, and that sequence gets interrupted in your delivery, in your birth process. And so like a birth imprint, someone that doesn't like peters out at the end.
Mm.
That's the integration phase. Like that's the completion and the integration phase. So did something happen in their birth that disrupted their like outlet dynamic, their completion phase, and then the integration phase? Like instead of being in mom's arms, naked, having a moment of rest, were they actually taken over to like a resuscitation table and given oxygen and suction and not allowed to like have an integration?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
then where my mind goes is I'm like, okay, but if that's showing up in your minerals, are they like, is there any theory from Paul Eck or just what you've studied that like we're a carbon copy of our our mother. Like if my mother's potassium was messed up, could that in some way dictate a potassium pattern in me? And then you add the birth imprint, and it's like, what's coming first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like, I feel like there has to be some sort of relationship here. Or maybe I'm just
Absolutely.
grasping.
No, 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 no. It's very, yes, there's a lot. So I work with mothers and their children. So I've seen many different, tests of moms and their kids, especially like their younger kids, and it's pretty wild how similar they often are. And there's a four lows, but there's different variations within that. And like her daughter's in the exact same, like the calcium is here, and you're just like, whoa, like so from a very kind of physiological perspective, moms are giving 4 pounds of their, like the mom's body is what's building the baby's body. So if we are deficient in calcium and we're storing more lead or cadmium because of that, the baby is going to pull, or the mom's body is going to pull as much calcium as it can to give to baby. And these days, we're definitely passing heavy metals on to our children, and that's just reality. And it kind of is what it is. Like, or I guess I say that in like, I don't know how much benefit there is to stressing a lot about that, because it's just happening. Like it's just part of our environment basically. But the more depleted, a mother is, the more depleted baby will be. Then there's like the nervous system piece, right? So like women know we kind of inherit our mom's nervous systems a lot of the time, and kids in general. And so I think that's a layer there too, where like I've seen women that, when I describe the sympathetic dominance pattern, they're like, oh my God, that was my mom to a T. And, I think in that case, sometimes we just get into, sometimes it's not passed on from mom. Sometimes it's, we just have a stressful life experience. We've had a lot of trauma. We took on too much. We had kids, without support, what the situation may be. But then there are cases where I do think that mom's nervous system does kind of get passed along, and that can have a very physical mineral component to that. And the piece about the birth imprint, like that's so fascinating. That's incredible. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And I did like how you brought up, like, my nervous system is very different than my mom's,
Mhm.
but it's like, but it makes sense because I had a pusher pattern, didn't I? I still do, maybe. I don't know. I feel like I did.
Yeah, I think you did for sure. I don't know if you're still there. I could look.
But that pusher pattern was in response to my childhood, right? Like parents that I'm going to say allowed for a lot of independence. So I had to figure a lot out on my own. And so I had to figure life out. I had to grow up really fast. I had to, yeah, and like basically start surviving at 16, even a little, just like really caring for myself, which put me into that pusher pattern of like
Right.
overdoing, survival,
Hyper independent.
hyper independence. Still working with that a lot, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the other thing I loved, well, this is something I could nerd out with you on forever. I feel like that not a lot of people are talking about. It's starting to show up on Instagram. You said something along the lines of like, I was very spiritually open, but it was depleting you.
Hmm.
Like this image of like expansion and growth and spirituality is all coming from like, six, seven chakra and these higher realms, and the lighter we are, like, I definitely know that language. I was in that world of like, you don't want to be weighed down. And if you're eating meat, you're taking on the energy of the animal.
Right.
And
Right.
like, you want to be air, you want to be ether, you want to be just like, that's how you are spiritual. Like, that is how you
Um,
connect to these realms up here. And then like what that is doing to like the lower chakra system, or like the bones. I'm like, what about the bones? Like, we need to be in our bodies. We need to be in our bodies.
Yes. Yes.
versus out here in the ethers, or maybe we need to be in our bodies first before the ethers. Like we have to, that's another yoga saying, like you have to root to rise. You
Right.
have to root. And there is so little rooting. There's so little rooting. But we think we're rooted. Like we think I definitely like have gone down those spiritual realms and did all those journeys. And I don't want to bash them because then there's the whole, because we've taken them out of context culturally, really. Like we've adapted them and quote unquote made them ours and adapted them to us. We're not keeping those traditional cultural roots. But we've just completely bypassed like the body. And then if you're depleted, you don't want to be in your body because it sucks. Like it hurts. And then you just kind of stay in this cycle. And I see this language on Instagram. And the other thing I think feeds into this, and then I would love to hear your 2 cents, is it becomes an addiction
Mm-hmm.
and like almost spiritual seeking. And I'm going to even take away the spiritual, like the seeking, the constant, like, I need to go to therapy. I need to process this. I need to do all these trainings. I need to like, it's a pusher pattern, I think, but it almost becomes an addiction. It became an addiction for me to the point where I like almost lost my marriage because of it. Because I was seeking and in all these like cults and like doing all these things.
Right.
And it was totally destroying my life.
Mm-hmm.
But my mindset was like, oh, I'm ascending and I'm spiritual and I'm connected. And then it becomes addicting. And then there's an ego piece to it. Like, you and I have seen this in some of your Instagrams. And it's funny because I'm a somatic practitioner and I want people to come to me. And I do believe somatics is great. And I'm like, at what point do we just kind of live and stop
Yeah.
trying to heal?
Yeah. 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 Yes. I mean, oh my God. And like, yeah, it's so easy in any kind of conversation where you're kind of exploring two different approaches. It's easy to kind of be like, I don't want to bash it. Like you said, I've done it. Was really in that place hardcore. And I still hang in those spaces a lot of times. I mean, when I moved back to Minnesota, it was like, who are the people that are going to be really open and welcoming? Like the people that do a lot of psychedelics and are like spiritually open and going to ecstatic dance. And, so like it's not an either or thing. It's really not. But I do get frustrated when I hear about or see women especially prioritizing like a spiritual healing path over their bodies. And I think that's what is happening. Like I feel pretty strong in my belief that that's what's happening. It doesn't feel like it. I'm sure at least it didn't for me. I was like, I'm doing the work. I'm healing. I'm like I'm having the conversation with psilocybin every day. There's so much happening. And I mean, I have women that come to me and like, they don't want to do this. They like, once they kind of get into the mineral balance and give them a protocol and it's like, eat 3 meals a day, get enough protein, like some of my protocol, it's basic. It's basic stuff. And like, there's some women that are like, nah, like I want something more. I want something more complicated. I want whatever, But I do, like, we are literally like the keepers of birth and death. I mean, we are our bodies. The reason that I get so passionate, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this work is because the next generations are up to us. And if we are depleted AF, we're going to birth depleted AF babies. And like, it just perpetuates. And I think we're fragile enough as it is today. I think we have enough health issues that are really seriously impacting our families and our societies, and it's hard to witness. And of course, men play a role in this as well. And I think like women need to take responsibility for their bodies. I don't remember where I saw this, but it really resonated where it was like men's work is to kind of go up and out. Like men, do the peyote and they need to like connect to something greater than themselves and like open up spiritually. Women are already there. Like when we're nourished and we're like I don't need to do anything more than what I'm doing right now. Like, I just sit outside with my feet on the grass and like sit in the sun, and I'm like communing with the world, you know? Like, it's really not this, we already have this inside us. And so women's work is to go, this person, this random person that I saw that really resonated. She said women's work is to go down, and in and down. You know, we need fat on our hips. We need an excess to give to these babies that we're birthing, or to give to our mama friends that are, you know, if we're supporting. Like, that, I think, is a role of, for a lot of women. And I think a lot of the kind of spiritual, like the new age spiritual approaches that aren't really rooted. I mean, it's like a lot of like picking from different, you know, like I was doing like the Hindu yoga thing. I was doing the like Shipibo Peruvian plant medicine ayahuasca thing. You know, like, and I get it. Like, we're spiritually lost. And I know for myself, like, that I was so thirsty for that. And that's why I like opened and went so deep into it. So again, I don't blame anyone for doing it. I fully understand it, because our culture is broken. We're missing a huge piece. What I see a lot of new age spirituality approaches, especially in the plant medicine world, it's very masculine. Hape all the time, super masculine. Mambe all the time, super masculine. I mean, there's so much I could say, but and I do think there's a way to do it where you can like be focused on your nourishment and be in your feminine, and also, you know, commune with the grandmother and like have your, like, there's ways to do it. But I do get really concerned when addiction, well, and that's the other thing, is like these are also substances that are addicting. Like, let's just also be real with that. That's one thing that frustrates me a lot. It's like, and I was there. I really was that person where I'm like, I'm having a hape prayer. You know, I need this to reset. I need to ground. I need to XYZ. You're snorting tobacco ash up your nose. Like, I'm sorry. I cannot. It's like, and do it, whatever. I don't like, I'm not saying never do that, but like, let's be honest about what we're doing. And tobacco is very addicting. Like, yes, I believe there is a spirit of the grandfather in this plant, and it's really can be really healing and potent. But we also live like in this time, in this age. And I don't know if you can get addicted to just snorting tobacco up your nose. Like, that's, you know, like there's just this level of like languaging and ego. And again, I was really in this. I really, really was. But it can be, now I'm kind of seeing it from the other side, and I'm like, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, dude, like, okay, you're not eating because you have mambe in your mouth all the time. And that's a stimulant. That is the initial, that's what cocaine is made from. Like, yes, they chew coca leaves in the Alps, or not the Alps, the Apus in Peru, like in the Sacred Valley. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, that's a contextual thing. And we're not in that context. And it's complex. You know, I don't have all the answers, and I don't know if the answer is like, we should never, you know, work with plant medicines or psychedelics that are not from our culture or whatever. Like, it's too complex for that. But it's not my preference often, but as I've simplified my life and let go of my addictions to chaos, and just like got into the kind of chop wood, carry water, like, you just gotta cook, you gotta clean your house, you gotta like, this is what it takes to feel grounded and regulated and nourished. That's where the true relaxation and radiance can come from. There's a level of containment that women especially, I think our nervous systems really thrive when we're in containment. And that's another kind of critique I have of those spaces, is they're often very leaky energetically. Not all of them, and not everyone in them, but it gets to be a bit of a clusterfuck for women to be in this, like, we're open, and we're going to be kind of open in our relating, and like, we're going to be like nice. And I don't know, there's just, it can be extractive. It can be depleting. It can be depleting on a very real level, I think, for women to be in a lot of community and spaces that do not have kind of like a safe holding and containment. Like you don't have to hug every single person you meet. You don't have to be super nice and have like the deepest soul level drop in with the guy you met at the thing. Like we can just be contained in our families and with our close friends and live in a simple way, and that's okay. And we're spiritual as we are. And I think there's a lot of like women's nervous systems need that. Like our society is so busy and there's so much pressure as there is. And like we're holding a lot and we're getting inundated with information. And I don't feel that that's the place to healthily launch into more stress on the body in psychedelics, for example. Like that's not often the like foundation that I would want to see a woman start that work from.
Mic drop.
I don't know how long I just talked, but thanks for letting me talk.
So good. So, so good. Yeah. God, so much. I noticed when you were talking, I got really emotional at one point because you were talking about, women are portals. We are the portals. We're holding life and death. I'm supporting the birth end so much more than obviously the death end, but they're connected. And, you're talking about like you have to have reserves. You have to have reserves. And just reflecting upon my past 2 years, I mean, I've been really growing my business the past 2 years, and that's the amount of time I've been working with you. Just like, I was emotional because I was having a moment of gratitude of like, wow, I'm actually serving the moms. Like, that's been my mission really the last couple of years of like, how can I serve mothers' nervous systems? Like, how can I be in service to the greater whole and the collective? And like, I really think I've only been able to do that and step into that and own that and be in that grounded, resourced energy because of the work I've been doing with you. Thank you.
That is so powerful.
Yeah. Like I really don't think I would have the capacity that I have now if I haven't been if I haven't been doing what I've been doing on this mineral journey, and like you holding that space and then me being dedicated to it and having the devotion to it. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing it and showing up for yourself.
Yeah. And I just am like, I'm in that contemplation. It's my koan. It's my life journey of like, how can we support mothers' nervous systems? Because as you said, you have a depleted body, you have a depleted baby. And this world is so fucked up right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it without laughing because I'm
Yeah.
what is happening?
Right. Yeah.
But what's happening is we have a lot of very, very depleted nervous systems and bodies, and that's going into the babies. And it is just compounding into this larger ripple effect system.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I needed that spiritual work and that spiritual world and that spiritual practice and some of the plant medicines. Like, I do think I couldn't have gotten where I am without that.
Right.
So again, I don't want to bash it. And for some people, it's what they need and it's where you are in your life. And you said something, you were like, it was like, you have to be in the body and you have to get into the body, and women need to go in and ground. And you could replace spiritual practice with pretty much any word. It could be diet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It could be overworking.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's taking you away from going down and in. And I think that anything is literally like our culture and our society.
Yeah. Totally.
Everything
Totally.
out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I started saying there was a while where I was like, breakfast is my spiritual practice, because it was not fun for me at first to shift my 2-hour microdosing cacao, expansive morning practice to like having to cook breakfast and trying to eat within an hour of waking up and, all this stuff. I was just like, oh my God, like boring, like mundane, but then I was like, no, this is my spiritual practice. This is my spiritual practice. This is more important because my health was so bad. Like, I have to do this. This is more important than my meditation practice. This is more important than my microdose. This is more important than journaling. Like, this is the most important thing I can do for myself is cooking breakfast and eating breakfast. and how my life has changed from having a regulated blood sugar experience and having energy throughout the day, being able to build muscle and having just more capacity and resilience. I mean, the ripple effects are huge when we tune into the body's needs.
Yeah. Because we can actually show up. We can actually, yeah. So as we start to wrap up a little bit, I'd love to know what would you tell I'm really curious about postpartum, obviously, because that's my world. And I do think so many postpartum moms are depleted. And one of my mentors, Rochelle Saliga Garcia, who does innate traditions and where I did my doula training. And she at one point was like to the moms, like to all the moms out there, no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to fix this for you. Like you have to do this. And if you want a thriving postpartum, you have to do it. Unfortunately, that's our culture. That's our
Yeah.
society. And like,
Yeah.
I loved how you called making breakfast became your spiritual practice because it's like, well, maybe the castor oil pack becomes the spiritual practice.
Mm,
Maybe eating breakfast, like maybe that is what the postpartum mom that is completely depleted really can do is just like eat breakfast. But what would you say? I mean, I think both to the postpartum mom and then maybe, the woman interested in conception and eventually having a baby. Like if they could do one or two things, what would you have them do to start to support their bodies at a base level?
yeah. Well, I mean, there's three things. Slow down. And I mean, there's so much to unpack in that statement. But the earlier you can start that process in your life, the better. I mean, it's interesting. I live in a city now and it's very different. They're putting their babies in daycare like at 3 months I mean, I've heard of 6 weeks. And we don't have a financial system that supports, birth in this country and mothers in this country. So I don't know what's going on in their lives, but like that's intense when I heard that. I was like, whoa. I mean, I was at some garden shop, I think last weekend, and there was a woman in there with like her 3-week-old baby. And she looked fine, whatever, it was fine. But I was also like, why shouldn't you be in bed? Like, why are you here? Like, why? I wouldn't want to, I don't know. I just like I haven't become a mother yet, but I just kind of intuitively, I'm like, I don't know, be home. Like, why would you bring this little baby to this garden shop? It just felt weird to me. I don't know. So I think that slowing down piece and like getting really, something like the first 40 days where you surrender to not, like, what if you tried to not leave your house for the first 40 days? Unless you, absolutely have to for something. Like, I think even in okay, this is going to kind of open into a bigger conversation, but even when I had my metabolic crash, I was so sensitive to stress. I was so like depleted and reactive that I remember being like, I can only put one thing on my to-do list a day. If I put 3 things on my to-do list, it's like too much. It sucked. It was so hard. But my body was just like, you're going to do nothing. You're going to do nothing right now. I've been thinking about this too because I've fallen off my strength training practice and I've been kind of reevaluating like, okay, is that the right practice? Is that approach, this kettlebell thing that I was doing, is that the right thing for me? Because I was actually still pushing myself and I was inflamed and having some body pain after. So I haven't started up quite yet and I've slowed down and like my calcium increased on my last HTMA and I'm just like watching, I'm kind of feeling the metabolic slowdown. And I'm also just attuning to like, sometimes I think women need that. We need that slowdown, even if it quote unquote looks worse, or even if I'm noticing like my blood sugar is a little more sensitive, or like I'm noticing some very, tangible impacts of not having a strength training practice. And I really want to get back into it because I know it's so good for my health and I feel so much better. And I've been like sleeping, really healthy, happy relationship with someone that helps me slow down and do less. And so I'm like, maybe this is okay right now and trying to be okay with this rather than like put so much pressure on myself to force some sort of strength training thing before I'm really like all systems on deck with it. So that's kind of tangential, but just like the message of slowing down be reiterated enough for new moms especially. And then I'm such a proponent of the HTMA and mineral balancing. I would say, and I am, I think probably because of my age and just whatever, I have a lot of women coming to me preconception, while pregnant, postpartum, and like it really helps. It really helps. It can be kind of, I think it's surprising, how much it can help to give your body the minerals that it's actually needing to feel more calm in your nervous system. It's not just going to be the supplements, we have to we have to change our lifestyle too. And that's where I'm like, okay, this is like a year, this is a 2 year, this is a years of work. I'm still, we don't arrive anywhere, but I used to work in Silicon Valley. Like it was like sympathetic dominance times 1,000. I mean, I was just doing everything. And yeah, from there to where I am 10 years later, I'm just like, okay, I think I'm getting it. I'm finally able to sleep better and longer. And yeah, it's a practice. But I do think the thing, I guess the key there is that oftentimes like the nervous system isn't able to feel safe or settled when it's deficient or when it's really like if it's very minerally depleted, if you don't have enough calcium, magnesium, those are calming minerals for the body. If your body doesn't have enough of those, like you're going to feel tense. You're going to, your body's in a state of stress because it's in a survival mode. It doesn't have the building blocks that it needs. So that's where there's like, it's both and like we need to do the mineral work and the nutrition work. And we also need to reorient our lifestyles to support what our body's actually telling us and what it needs. I don't remember what the third thing, I think it was probably food. Just like you gotta get the food dialed, get a deep freezer. I mean, for postpartum moms, get a deep freezer and pack that to the brim and have a meal train. Get really clear on what types of meals you want. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there, but like you can't just wing it. You cannot just wing it. You have to eat. You have to eat. I mean, women have to eat in general. But then you have to eat when you're pregnant. You have to eat postpartum. Your life is going to be light years better if you prepare for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think just reiterating the slow and steady process, right? Like you usually require women to work with you for a year at a time, which I think is very, very smart. Excuse me. It's really the only way to do it, I think, in your line of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I signed up for a second year just because I was noticing the changes and wanted to stay on that continuum. And I think in our culture, there's such a focus for the quick fix. Like I just want to take one pill. And I've had quite a few people reach out to me and be like, tell me what you're doing. And I'll tell them and they'll just be like, and you're 2 years in. And I'm like, yeah, and they're like, how many supplements did you have to take? And like, their mind can't quite compute like that this is not a quick fix, that this is a journey. And it's been a devotion of mine, like I said, because I knew I needed it. Like I was so depleted and just I was in a great state, but I knew I could feel better. And I mean, my blood work was showing a lot of red flags and I was too young to be having so much of that. So I do think it's just this like, but that's more feminine, right? It's more that energy of just like slow and steady and more yin, and it's juicier. My life is so much juicier in so many ways.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The quick fix. I mean, and that's another thing too, where it's like with a year-long program, like women that they want the quick fix, they're not going to sign up for that. I mean, it's so it kind of, I want to work with women that understand, how many years did it take you to get to this place? I mean, I told you my story. It's like I had all the drinking, I had all the birth control, like the disordered eating. There's so many pieces to our stories and to our cellular makeup and to our nervous system makeup. And you can't change that even in a year. I mean, you can do a lot, but like this is like deep rewiring. I never thought I'd move back to Minnesota. I never thought, like all these things that just required me to, like my life just changed in such a big way that I never expected once I started once I continued my mineral balancing journey and I started to prioritize differently. And it took years.
Well, anything else that you want to share or talk about that I didn't ask you feel important to put into this conversation?
The only thing coming up, this is kind of random, but I'm just going to bring it up because it's been a big part of my story, is that when I moved back to Minnesota, I ended up finding my way into a 12-step room. And it's the one that I'm in is called it's ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And it's been so helpful, especially kind of from a little bit of my recovery and integration from my spiritual seeking self. And, to be in a church basement with a bunch of strangers, we're in a circle, there's no psychedelics, there's no cool retreat, there's nothing. You're just super getting real with yourself and getting really honest and looking at childhood patterns. And I could go on, but it has been a game changer. And I don't think I had the capacity to do this until I, healed my relationship with my body and resourced myself and had reserves. And yeah, then it was kind of like, okay, we're going into this really uncomfortable thing. And it's just been so good. So I just wanted to share that, I guess, because it is a huge part of my story. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I do think 12-step processes and classes and groups are profound for addiction and addiction recovery. And I didn't realize that there was a 12-step for children of alcoholics and addiction. That's great.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I knew about AA, I knew about Al-Anon, and it's not just, this is the kind of wild thing, is it's also for children of dysfunctional families. So, I mean, probably everyone would benefit, honestly. But it's, I have a lot, there were people in my group that their parents were not alcoholics or had any substance issues, but there was, I don't know, physical abuse or really controlling or XYZ, name whatever dysfunction that we've experienced. But it's been profoundly, profoundly healing also from a relationship standpoint. And the kind of ethos is even if there's no substance abuse in your history, you were raised in a family with that addictive imprinting or that dysfunctional imprinting. I was really searching for a healthy relationship and was not finding that. I kept being attracted to unhealthy relationships. So, yeah, this is just an example of it's not just one thing. It's not just minerals or nutrition. It's all the different ways that we're approaching our wholeness, your work, fascia. I mean, man, there's so much there, but it's all in service to the body. I think that's a helpful orientation of is this in service to your body first?
I love that question. It's a great question. Is this in service to my body? And congratulations on finding a man. When you said this, you're like, he encourages me to slow down. I'm like, oh, so does my partner. All the time. He's just like, are you resting? It's Sunday. Are you reading
Right.
your book? Don't go do that, And I think
Yeah.
that's pretty unusual to find a man that encourages a woman to literally do nothing. And he's like, take a bath. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yes. Bless him. And it's also just he'll be like, how are you you don't have time to do that. If we're gonna stop by your dad's, you're not gonna be able to do that. There's just this kind of more ground. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but sometimes I'm just I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And he's like, no, you're not. There's no physical way for you to do all those things. And I'm like, yeah, there is. And I would do that in the past, but I would be running around like a crazy person. And he's like, well, we got to make lunch. And I'm like, but okay.
And we have to sit down to eat lunch. We don't have to make lunch,
God.
but we're going to sit down to eat lunch and enjoy each other's company while we eat lunch.
Yes. Yeah. It's good medicine. It's really good medicine. It's very helpful.
Yeah. And allowing myself to transition to the space to not to fight him in that and be like, no, I'm going to do this and just be like, you're actually caretaking right now. And there's this bigger picture of groundedness that you can see that I can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Being receptive, not like hyper independent.
Hmm. Like, yes, I will sit down and eat a meal with you right now.
Yeah. I mean, like in our dreams, that's what we want, right? Like we want that kind of connection and intimacy and care. But our nervous systems and our patterning and, all of it can get in the way
Mm,
of
yeah.
receiving that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so, so much. I would love for you to talk about how people can work with you or how people can find you and just the different ways to meet you because obviously you are a great person to work with.
Thank you, Lesha. Yeah, so Sena-Maria.com. That's my website. You can follow me on Instagram, Sena 2_Maria, Sena. I have Radiantly Nourished, which is the 12-month mineral balancing membership. And I'm actually in the process of revamping that. And so the plan is to have it, well, we'll see. Ideally, I want to have it revamped by the new year, but like knowing women, hashtag women, it'll probably be a little longer. But that being said, if anyone's feeling the call, I would say jump in, by the end of this year and you'll get all the new stuff at a much lower price. So I'm excited about that. It's got the one-on-one. It has 3 HTMA consults throughout the year with me. And then like the access to me is what I really wanted to provide. So you can chat me and ask questions anytime throughout the year. I also do monthly group calls so people can just give updates, hear from other women on this healing journey, and then, ask me questions live. So that's every month. There's a group forum that's going to be totally revamped. So there's just a lot of touch points. And that's why I basically designed what I wished I had had when I was in my health crash, because I felt so isolated. And it was, it's hard to it's, whether it's a naturopath or whatever, it's hard to access a lot of practitioners, which I understand. I mean, we're all need to protect our time and our energy, but I want this to be a place where you feel supported and held. And so that's kind of how I designed it with both the one-on-one and the groups. And then and then we have 6 tests after like 2 years for you, right? We have 6 tests. We have like 2 years of data, which I find really invaluable of just like this regular check-in with your body, meeting it where it's at with mineral needs, nutrition needs. I think it's like, to me, this work is kind of like a preventative health approach where like, I mean, yeah, you can go get a physical once a year, but this is like a little deeper, just check-in and attunement to like making sure that I'm, just meeting my body where it is, because life is always going to be stressful and we can't stop that, but we can support our resilience and our capacity to be with that stress. So yeah, mineral balancing membership, Radiantly Nourished. That's my main thing. DM me, email me. I love to chat, women.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
people do want to join that program, can they just DM you or go to your website, check you out,
Yep.
contact you,
hmm Yeah.
set up
Exactly.
an interview?
There's a website. I actually changed it, so I will do 15-minute calls if people have questions. I'm happy to do a quick chat, but you don't have to necessarily. So if you're ready to just jump in, just DM me or go on my website and you can find the link.
Amazing.
Thank you, Lesha.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's been fun. I've been really looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm
And
so
trust
glad
the
we did it.
timing.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's all perfect.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lesha.